as you said, today marks an important but tragic day for all of Uyghurs. 20 years ago, starting on the 5th of July 2009, thousands of Uyghur protests were killed, possible disappeared, injured in the brutal response from the Chinese government to peaceful protests from the Uyghur youth in Urumqi in response to Chinese policy in East Turkestan. Urumqi Massacre stands as a movement where the Chinese government changed its policy towards Uyghur from repression and discrimination to total assimilation, and now is ongoing genocide. So Urumqi massacres and a number of other violent crackdowns, Uyghur attempting peacefully raise their legitimate grievances have all led to a situation where the Chinese government has made East Turkestan an open-air prison for the Uyghur, Kazakh, and the other speaking Muslim. As a result, many Uyghurs have sought to flee the region before 2017, after which living was practically made impossible. Still, Uyghur tribe become staying in East Turkestan is often equal to death sentence. Some Uyghurs do indeed to make it across the border. However, whereas one would expect the Uyghur refugee to be threatened with the dignity and respect in the third country due to Chinese repressive influence abroad. Uyghur refugees remain under grave dangers to be returned to China. We cannot forget that countries under international law are obligated to adhere to principle non-refoulement, which forbidden the country to return refugees if they are under threat of maltreatment upon return. For Uyghurs, this real threat in China are very apparent. Additionally, thousands of Uyghurs abroad live under dangerous conditions as they have become stateless. Even after obtaining refugee status in the third safe countries, they are continue to face challenge. For example, government continue to require official Chinese documents from Uyghur abroad, but it is impossible in current context because Chinese consulate have stopped providing such a document to the Uyghur unless they are returned to China, where they might be at risk of internment or other inhuman treatment. Persecution at home and the unwelcome abroad, the Uyghur people feeling violence and the repression in China and the running out of the place to go. Chinese government tracks Uyghur refugees and asylum seekers beyond its borders, using its growing of influence and economic power to pressure national government to return them to China. In July of 2017, 200 Uyghur students were arrested in Egypt, likely at the behest of the China. There has been no evidence of the student committing any wrongdoing, yet at least 22 Uyghur students, at least maybe more than 50 or 100 Uyghur students were possibly returned to China from Egypt and have since disappeared. In November 2017, 11 Uyghur refugees were arrested in Malaysia and were at risk of the imminent deportation to China. They were part of the 20 Uyghur asylum seekers who escaped from Thailand refugee detention center in November 2017, and they fled to Malaysia after being detained since 2014. There is no end to their detention in sight. They belong to a large group, 360 Uyghur refugees who were detained back 2014 in Thailand. After 1 year, Thai authority led 173 Uyghur refugees, mostly children and women, to be transferred to the Turkey, and they deported back 109 men to China. Given the grave threat the Uyghur face in the Turkestan, it is imperatively that countries in the international community to do everything in their power to provide the safe haven for the Uyghur refugees and in no case possible return Uyghur to China. They must also eliminate logistical and the bureaucratic challenge for the Uyghur living abroad. Therefore, we call to support to the joint letter that Malaysia for Uyghurs organizing about the giving Uyghur status protection in Malaysia, and country including Malaysia should provide Uyghur with fully refugee status and ensure that Uyghur have promote access to fair and effective asylum process and legal counsel. And thanks again, you organizing such a wonderful event today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brother Dokun Isa from Munich, Germany, President of World Uyghur Congress. That is very true, because I've invited many Uyghurs in Malaysia to give a statement tonight, but they do not dare out of fear of safety, their safety, men and women as well, and their children at the same time. So, I mean, later on I can read a statement that was sent to me, because she was really afraid for her picture or even voice, which is trackable by the communist artificial intelligence system. So I will read that statement later on. And right now I'd like to introduce to you to Sister Rahima Mahmud, World Uyghur Congress in United Kingdom, especially on the issue, on the topic of Uyghur Tribunal, where it was recently held in London, and in our memorandum of action that we request, that we've stated in our memorandum of action, is to host, for Malaysia to host an Uyghur Tribunal to gather the evidence and to create awareness. So, to you, Sister Rahima.
Assalamu alaikum. And really, really wonderful to see so many great people here and friends. And it's really encouraging to see now Malaysia is taking this very important actions against China. And I know it is not that easy in the countries like in Malaysia and many other countries as well. I'm Rahima Mahmud. I'm the project director of the World Uyghur Congress and the executive director of the Stop Uyghur Genocide. So since I started the office in London 2 years ago, one of the things that we decided, of course, with the encouragement of the President Dokun Isa, that we needed to seek some kind of legal procedures to hold China accountable. So we did 3 legal cases. For example, one was a legal case taking the HMRC stop the importation of the slave labor goods. That's still the case, is still ongoing. And the second or most important that legal procedure was appointing the People's Tribunal led by a very well-known Sir Geoffrey Nice QC, who prosecuted Slobodan Milosevic at The Hague. And I was an interpreter at China Tribunal when they hold tribunal against the organ harvesting, crime against humanity, organ harvesting. And so that's how we met the tribunal group. And having had many meetings, we decided to go ahead to hold this tribunal to make a determination that genocide is taking place. As you all aware that we don't have the UN route to have this determination by ICC or ICJ. So we worked very closely with the tribunal, although tribunal is completely independent, but our role was to help gather evidence and put them in touch with the people, experts, and so that they have the most credible and detailed research and fact witnesses available. So the hardest work already been done by the tribunal since September last year. They set up a legal team to collect and analyze and select the most important information that can be used and to make the determination. So in in June, from the 4th to the 7th, the tribunal took place at one of the very prestigious building, the church house in Westminster. We had 24 fact witnesses, mostly camp survivors and also people who has family, have credible information about what happened to their family members, and many scholars, researchers gave evidence. Among them, I worked as a face-to-face, the only face-to-face interpreter, both in Uyghur language and the Chinese. We had one Chinese policeman who gave evidence, and that was a very, very powerful evidence as far as I concerned, and including the tribunal members concerned, because he confirmed almost everything that we know about the internment, about the torture, including very detailed torture method that was used in these prison camps. So I am encouraged to hear that you would like to have similar kind of court proceedings in Malaysia, and I'm sure the Uyghur Tribunal, they will be more than happy to share any kind of evidence, information. They're willing to work with any constitutions or court who are willing to take this a case further. So that is quite. I mean, the things already made it very easy because of these professionals already did the most important and difficult job. So I'm here in the UK. I myself, Uighur, lost contact with my own families, sisters, my brothers, since January 2017. My last conversation with my eldest brother, who was an imam of one of the mosques in Roja city, and he told me, leave us in God's hands, and we'll leave you in God's hands too. That was my last conversation, and I don't know what happened to him and to my rest brothers and sisters and all the friends. So the situation is extremely difficult. As you know, if you follow the Uyghur Tribunal, Chinese government tried very hard to discredit the witnesses, and they are using really a heavy campaign, disinformation campaign, try to influence the world, especially those who are supporting the Uyghur cause, to send them disinformation, saying that everyone who are talking about the Uyghur issue are basically is baseless, is lie. So I think most important job for us, I mean, from my own experience in the UK, 2 years ago, it was a similar situation. There were people who would look at me, are you sure that you are, that is what is happening? It's unbelievable. People find it difficult to believe it, but now hardly anyone say that, because we managed to raise awareness through grassroots campaign, cross-community, cross-party campaign. And finally, I would like to say, if I believe for Malaysian government, especially the MPs, to take on more proactive kind of actions, would encourage, approach them to join IPAC, Interparliamentarian Alliance on China. The IPAC has many different motions and actions that in different countries the IPAC members are taking, and it has been very successful. So next motion, the IPAC that will be doing in this country is the motion on diplomatic boycott of Winter Olympic 2022. So I should stop here, and Brother Zuhri, so we are connected now, and if anything that I can support from the UK or exchange any ideas or campaign experience, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sister. I mean, it's inspiring to know that other countries have already taken precedence, and we hope to be able to learn from you soon and host our own Uyghur tribunal to gather evidence and create the awareness. Okay. Brother Omar Kanat from Uyghur Human Rights Project is unable to join us for today due to a family emergency, and I think a representative will be joining soon, but I think right now we will pass the floor to witnesses of the Urumqi Massacre. They are Canadians, and just let me share the screen. Okay, Gary and Andrea Dyke from Canada. I know it's very early for you, it's 7 a.m., right?
Yep, no problem. Yes, thank you. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. We lived in China from 2008 to 2018. Before that, we were in an NGO in Central Asia for 6 years. We were in Urumqi, and then we moved to Turpan, just outside of Urumqi, and we ran a social enterprise, a compost business, helping the farmers in the Turpan region, and we loved it all. And so yeah, thank you for having us here. And yeah, there's a picture of our family in Turpan. We have 3 children there. Thank you.
On Sunday afternoon, 12 years ago, we were visiting friends on the 16th floor of an apartment in downtown. We heard the sounds of explosions. We watched as smoke rose across the downtown. We intended to walk home with our children, but friends of ours were on that street and couldn't get through. They witnessed attacks on the street, one man with a knife sticking out of his stomach. In a few hours, we saw through the windows of our friend, we stayed at their house for the night, and we saw the military convoys streaming into the downtown. The electricity was cut off, and all cell phone use was stopped. The internet was off for months. The next day, as we walked home with our children, we saw the army marching down the streets, and for weeks afterwards, there were armored vehicles set up everywhere. The following days, the Han people came out onto the street, but the Uyghurs were not coming out. We heard that thousands of young men were rounded up and not seen again in the following days. In the months afterwards, we saw the bulldozing of many communities. Neighborhoods that had been there for many, many years were dismantled.
Yeah, and things were never the same again. Security from then on, after the July 5th massacre, just increased more and more every month, every year. It was always more increase. And it was obvious now to the Uyghurs that were there, you know, that this was not their place. They didn't have a voice, and many were trying to leave the country after that.
Genocide is a process. It's not a single event. A key feature of the genocidal process is that it is not only a systematic but also a patterned form of attack on a group. From Dr. Fogel.
So yes, we're going to just talk quickly about that process too. What we've also witnessed starting in 2016, the early stages of the genocide. We saw the restrictions, like I said, starting with July 5th, increasing. We saw the security checkpoints being established between cities. Razor wires on walls, convenience police stations set up at every major intersection in the region.
We saw airport level security installed at all stores, parks, and restaurants, with Uyghurs always getting extra scrutiny, even an extra lane just for the Uyghurs to be checked.
And if you see the picture, there's a picture of a line of people standing on the street wearing helmets. They have kind of the riot gear. Those are Uyghur people in the village of 3,000 where my factory was. And they all had to be there, and you can see if you look very closely at the picture, there's security cameras, there's a couple of them this way and that way, and there's propaganda poster on the right, this is the main intersection of the village, and they had to do this every day. They had to meet on the street corner for practice. And I personally saw the village streets become emptier and emptier as people were being taken away. It was very noticeable.
Eventually, very few households that we knew still had all of their family members at home. Some were taken to the camps, others were required to rotate among the village homes, teaching the new restrictions and watching on their fellow Uyghurs.
Beards, prayer mats, and religious ceremonies started to become illegal.
Skirt length and headscarves were scrutinized. In some areas, households were required to buy couches instead of using their traditional floor cushions, or else they would be taken to camps.
And then we saw security checkpoints between villages. Driving to work for myself, for example, just took that much longer, about 20 minutes more, just because of the several now roadblocks, police checks, and of course it was always the Uighurs. They were checking thoroughly, and the Han and other people like myself were able to go through freely.
Women who had never cut their hair since childhood had to keep their heads bare at the weekly public meetings. They stood there with their hands covering their faces in shame, and eventually cut their hair off.
Our sons, you saw his photo hopefully, and he had friends turning 18, and they were afraid to turn 18. Where in the world are young men, afraid to turn 18? Well, in Xinjiang, because that meant they could also be taken to the camps.
In the neighborhoods close to where we lived, 6 a.m. morning calls began on the suburb and village streets. Police would blow their whistles, and within minutes, everyone had to be up and arrive for their picture. They would all be asked, "Are you happy? How is your marriage? Is everyone home and happy?"
We saw the camp start built down our street from our house 10 minutes away, and we knew this was not a happy time.
Why give Uyghur refugees status? Because genocide is real, there is clear harm. We heard of several Uyghurs called back from overseas and not coming through the arrivals area of the airport. Their families never saw them again.
And Uyghurs are worth protecting. They are people that love, their family-loving people. They're good workers. You see on the photo too, working on the machinery. They always wanted to help, and they were just the best workers I had, and we just loved them. They're very hospitable too. And then the next picture, there's an article on the Diplomat. Actually, it just came out June 23rd. It's very well researched. About the sending of Uyghurs back to China, and China has just really increased it. It's a conservative article, so I recommend it, but there's much more. There's always more happening. And yes, just don't let them disappear into the largest incarceration of a people since the Holocaust. The last picture is a picture of my fertilizer bag, and I had a wonderful older lady. She was 70 years old, and she was the fertilizer agriculture expert for the Turpan region. And once 2016 started, she just didn't want her photo on the fertilizer bag with me, so we had to cover it up. So please, do not let the Uyghurs disappear anymore into the largest incarceration of a people since the Holocaust. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea and Gary Dyke. It's hard for me to hear that, and it must be worse for you and your children to go through that trauma. Okay, all right. So I think we can have a different session to go further into what happened, because they have witnessed from 2009 until 2018. So they've witnessed the change of suppression, racism from 2009 to 2018. They were there for 10 years. They're not tourists. They live there. They have business there. And recently they went back to Canada. Okay, all right. So thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Dyke. Okay, next we would like to invite Brother Faisal Aziz from ABIM, a Muslim youth movement in Malaysia. And the floor is yours, brother.
Assalamualaikum. Testing. Sound check. Okay.
Good.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Mr. President from Nation for Uighur. Brother Dokun Isa from World Uighur Congress, and also our friend from Muhammad Abdul Majid, and also from Cikgu Azmi, Abdul Hamid, Mr. Miss Rahima Mahmud, Ahmad Fahmi from GPM, and all media partners. First of all, praise to the Almighty, Alhamdulillah, for the opportunity for us to have this collaboration, to have this very significant event, which is to commemorate the Urumqi Massacre that took place in July 2009. Brothers and sisters, we should bear in mind that this event, which is to remember the Urumqi Massacre, does not only aim to keep repeating the feeling of sadness and sorrow every year, but more than that, for us move forward to stand up and to fight for the rights of the Uyghur people, the fundamental rights that they deserve to be given as respected human beings, that are the freedom of religion, rights to practice their own religion, rights to live in peace, rights to preserve their own culture, racial background, and identity as Uyghur people. And after decades, we see not much hope from the Chinese government to respect and acknowledge those basic rights. And after many decades, they have been extremely victimized, persecuted, and tortured until today. And that's the reason why we in Malaysia have a duty to observe their rights. And the topic that we discussed today about the rights of Uyghur people, Uyghur refugees in Malaysia. Brothers and sisters, just a short, as stated by Mr. Dolgan just now as well, under the international law, there is a concept of no reformo principle, where the principle of no reformo binds Malaysia under the customary international law, where under this principle, Malaysia is under the obligation not to return the refugees or asylum seekers or any other person to a frontier or territory where there is a risk of persecution, torture, cruel, inhumane, and degrading treatment or punishment or risk or to a threat of life, physical and freedom. So under this international customary law or non-reform principle, Malaysia is bound not to return the Uyghur people back to China if there is or if there are Uyghur refugees stranded in this country. And besides, in Malaysia, in our federal constitution, under the chapter of fundamental liberties, there are provisions in our federal constitutions use the phrase of person instead of citizen. For example, in Article 5, Clause 1 of federal constitution, it was stated that no person shall be deprived of his life or personal liberty save in accordance with the law. Meaning to say, not only Malaysian citizens need to be granted the personal liberty, but all person, meaning to say, even refugees, is asylum seekers, and in this case, the Uyghur people, they deserve to be respected. Their fundamental liberties in accordance with the law. And other provisions as well, we have Article 6, for example, no person shall be held in slavery. Article 8, about the equality before the law. All persons are equal before the law and entitled to equal protection of the law. So we need to respect laws, especially with regards to non-citizen people in Malaysia. And also, we have also the provision under Article 11 about the freedom of religion. Every person has the right to profess and practice his religion. So regardless of whether you are citizen, you are refugees, you are asylum seekers, we as a Malaysian, we need to respect, we need to grant rights, the freedom of religion, to all. And also, and there are also any other law that mention about uh, the fundamental liberties that need to be granted to the people. So, yeah, all in all, when we talk about the rights of refugees in Malaysia, more importantly is the right of no reformo. So meaning to say, in Malaysia, we have our duty. We are bound by the duty under the customary international law not to return them back to China or to any territory that expose them to be extremely victimized, persecuted by the by any regimes in this world. So, Brother Zuri, I was made to understand that I have to recite a prayer. Is it true, Brother Zuri?
Yes, a short prayer for the Uyghurs who have fallen on the 5th of July and other Uyghurs who have been killed.
Okay, but please allow me to recite the Kunut Nadilah in the first place. Can me?
Okay, all right. Quickly, please.
Okay, sorry. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma inna naj'aluka fi nuhuri a'da'ina wa na'udzubika min syururihim. Allahumma baddid syamlahum wa farriq jam'ahum wa shattid kalimatahum wa zalzil aqdamahum wa sallit alaihim kalman min kalabik. Ya Qahar, Ya Jabbar, Ya Muntaqim, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah. Allahumma ya munzil al-kitab wa ya mujri as-sahab wa ya hazim al-ahzab ihzimhum wa amsunna alaihim. Ya Allah, Ya Tuhanku, Ya Allah, please forgive and grant paradise to those who have been a victim for this Urumqi massacre. Allahumma ighfir lahum warhamhum wa'afihim wa'fu anhum wa akrim nuzulahum wa wasi' madkhalahum wa ighsilhum bil ma'i wal salji wal aqwarat wa naqihim min al-qataya wa adkhilhum fil jannah wa a'izhum min 'adhabil jannah min 'adhabil nar wa fitnatihim wa min 'adhabil qabr. Allahumma ighfir lahum warhamhum wa'afihim wa'fu anhum. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah wa qina 'adzaban nar. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wasallam. Walhamdulillah. So thank you, Brother Zuri. The floor is yours.
Thank you, brother, for your sharing and for enlightening us. Okay, next, we have Sister Zumrate Arkin on behalf of Brother Omar Khanat, who is unable to attend due to a family emergency. Sister, the floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. It is a pleasure to see so many allies from Malaysia and around the world. My name is Zumrate Arkin. I am the Program and Advocacy Manager here at the World Uyghur Congress. I'm also based in Munich with Tulkun Issa, our president. Before I read the statement, thank you for your solidarity. And this is a dark day for all Uighurs for the Urumqi Uprising Massacre commemoration of 12th year. And I was actually there during the Urumqi Uprising. It was my first holiday back in my homeland after immigrating to Canada with my family. And as my first summer holidays back in East Turkestan to see my family, I instead saw the repression and discrimination. So this is a very dark period for me and all of my people as well. I will be now reading Umar Khanat's statement. Assalamu alaikum, good evening, brothers and sisters. The Urumqi Massacre of July 5th, 2009 was a terrible turning point in the fate of Uyghur people. It started with a peaceful march in the capital of our homeland, Urumqi, to demand justice for Uyghurs, for 2 Uyghurs murdered by factory workers in Guangdong. The police response was brutal. Within a few weeks, thousands of young Uyghurs disappeared into police custody and were never heard from again. That was the turning point. After that, Chinese government policies became militarized and even more brutal, and a few years later, in 2017, the concentration camps began. Since 2017, any Uyghur in a foreign country who went home voluntarily was arrested as soon as they arrived at the airport. It did not matter if they went for a family visit, to take care of a sick parent, or for business. The police put black hoods over their heads and took them away to a prison camp. Therefore, Uyghurs cannot go home. This is why there is a refugee crisis. This is why it is critical that other countries must never deport Uyghurs to China. Even worse, the Chinese government is not just arresting Uyghurs who go home. It is pursuing them in foreign countries. It has conducted a campaign of transnational repression that puts every Uyghur at risk. In June, UHRP published a 62-page report called No Space Left to Run. The report documents that Uyghurs around the world who continue to be targeted by the Chinese government pressure on the immigration and security forces in many countries far beyond China's borders. Over the past 20 years, 28 countries have arrested or deported Uyghurs that are at the request of the Chinese government. Since 2014 alone, 1,327 Uyghur individuals were detained or deported from China from 20 countries. The vast majority were studying or doing business in Pakistan and the Middle East, countries that describe themselves as Islamic republics. Malaysia must not be one of the countries that helps China to persecute Uyghur Muslims. This is why it is so important that Malaysia adopt a human policy to rescue Uyghurs from a terrible fate by providing Uyghurs with an extended student visas, residency status, work authorization, and protection from deportation. This is an urgent policy matter. The Chinese government refuses to renew Uyghurs' passports at a consulate or embassy. The authorities say you have to return to your hometown to renew your passport. But we know that what will happen, they will be arrested and taken to prison. So they cannot renew their passports. After their passports expire, they have no place to go. That means that Uyghurs in Malaysia are in a dire situation. After their passports expire, they are left without identity papers. They do not have documentation to apply for a visa to travel to a safe country. They cannot extend their student status. Their work authorization is at risk. Brothers and sisters, your campaign for the Malaysian government to provide safe refuge for Uyghurs is a humanitarian campaign. It is a pro-human rights campaign. We are very grateful that Malaysia for Uyghur Coalition and many other Malaysian civil society groups, whether Muslim or Christian, Chinese or Malay, recognize this humanitarian crisis. We strongly endorse the policy proposal you are presenting to the government. May God bless this campaign. Thank you again to all the co-sponsoring organizations here today. God willing, with such important organizations backing this policy proposal, Malaysia will soon become one of the saviors of Uyghur people, inshallah. Thank you so much for letting me speak on his behalf. And now I have to leave for a protest, but it was a pleasure to hear all of you. Assalamu alaikum.
Salam, all the best at your protest. Stay safe. Thank you, sister. Right, inshallah, we can do something to protect our Uyghur brothers and sisters. And as mentioned, it's not just an Uyghur issue or a Muslim issue, it's a human rights issue. To continue, I'm delighted to invite Cikgu Azmi Hamid from MAPIM, Majlis Perundangan Islam Malaysia, President. Cikgu, the floor is yours. Cikgu.
Mic cikgu tak on.
Okay, all right. Sorry.
Okay, all right.
Okay, again, thank you so much, Zuhri. Thank you, everybody. Hope all of you are fine. Let me give you a very brief share of thoughts. This conversation is very important. It is a reiteration and also re-emphasizing and recognizing the plight of the Uyghur brothers and sisters. I've put up some small slides, just very briefly. I've sent it to Brother Zuri. You're able to just flash it. It's a very, very brief 5 or 7 slides. Is it there?
I'm sorry, having some problem with loading it. If you could briefly run through it.
While waiting for that, briefly, I think what we are trying to express is the fact that is really happening in the East Turkestan or Xinjiang. There's no doubt that the Uighur has been suffering since 1949, and then this commemoration of this dark day of the 5th of July, somewhat 10 years ago, has made us to come together and express our views and also our solidarity with the Uyghur. And I think the points are very clear. Number one is that we recognize that this is not just a narrative, this is a reality. This is something that's happening on a daily basis. And I think this point is very important for us to emphasize. Secondly, the situation in China itself, we are seeing a lot of things hidden from the international community, although some have been leaked out by some investigation. It is very difficult to get the facts around, but there's no doubt that these are the realities. And therefore, with the reports that's been coming out from international independence organization to come up with some studies on what's happening, those are already a very, very evidence of the atrocities and carnage that's happening there. And therefore, it is only for us to, to try to see whether we can push that up into the open. Although there will be a counter narrative by the Chinese government, of course, but if this comes out from many angles of the global community, from all countries among the civil societies, I think China will not be able to, to dispute, and probably they will. The best that they can do is to always try to put up something different and to try to convince. And they will be using their economic power to sort of, bait many small, economically weak countries to support what they are doing now. I've been organizing a meeting on the situation of the mosque around in Xinjiang, and I think that discussion we had where Zuhri also was around, Brother Jason was around. We plucked out from one or two of the reports saying that the situation is very dire. I mean, one of the real genocide of China on the Uyghur is to really, target on this institution where people, the Uyghur, are very close with. So we see statistics of how many have been damaged, how many have been closed down, how have been locked up, and how many have been totally destroyed. So that, to us, trigger a lot of concern, especially among the Islamic organization, Islamic scholars. We are trying our best to highlight this so that, the Muslim countries around the world will definitely have to pay attention to this issue. But then again, coming back to the rights of the Uyghur in Malaysia, I mean, we have a lot of basis to fall on to make sure that the government of Malaysia, give the protection to asylum seekers of the Uyghur. Number one is because of Brother Faisal has been elaborating about the clauses of the constitution. It's very clear. We are also, I'm also very eager to share with you that Malaysia has also signed up with the Human Rights Commission of the ASEAN, or the regional, organization of G2G, where we are now a part of this so-called protocol of human rights, where it is defined that each country has the obligation to protect the rights of people, and doesn't say whether it's the rights of citizens, the rights of people, and therefore we can use that to as a campaign tool. Another is because we have quite a strong and vocal Human Rights Commission in Malaysia, and though it's difficult sometimes to engage with the government, but I think that formal organization is there for us to fall back and use the provisions of the Human Rights Commission of Malaysia to come up with our proposals or our demands or our voice for the Uyghur. So because of that, then I would like to share with you my last point is how do we go about in this campaign? How do we make sure that there will be a response from the government? As the sister was saying, that there's a lot of hope for Malaysia to really do something. And although, as Brother Zuri said, one of our minister in the Prime Minister's department finally, officially came up with this very strong statement, very clear stance that, you know, we will not submit to the demands of China. We will protect the Uyghur. And I remember Dr. Mahathir once said that we do not have any right to send them back to China because they have done nothing wrong here in Malaysia. So they have the right to be here and to be protected. So based on this, I think if we were to engage with the government through, like one of our brothers or our sisters is now saying, that engage with the parliamentarians and making sure that this can be highlighted, then there's always a chance that the voice will be made to be listened to by the government. But other than that, I think mobilization of the masses, there is a need for a very clear strategy of, you know, communicating with the masses. We have got the mosque, we have the imams, you know, make them become very aware of this of the issue, and then for them to communicate with the masses in their own areas. I think that is very important. And there's a lot more that the NGOs in Malaysia are not well equipped with the knowledge of this Uyghur issue. We have to rope them in. The thousands of, as I always spoke, it's not about the Muslims alone. This is about the rights of people, the rights of anybody on their culture, on their religion. So I think it crosses the borders of religion and culture. Now, Malaysia seems is one of the most diversified country, diversified religion, and we have proven to be quite successful in this manner. I think bringing up this Uyghur to all the races of Malaysia is going to be, to us should be easy enough for us to communicate, because we have the sense of that already as a diversified country. Okay, my last word, Zuri. I would like to propose that this issue of the rights of Uyghur in Malaysia to be really formulated in a way that we have a common document. We have something that we can always, either improve it, but that document will become a very fundamental tool so that it will be brought to all the parties in Malaysia and make the Uyghur issue as one of the agenda that's been highlighted. Now, normally we have these three things that we always been talking about. It's either the Rohingya or the Palestinians. And now Uyghur has to be on board, because it is a very, it's a tragic humanitarian, story about how people are being treated in a very inhumane way. So I call all of you to please, after this conversation, we have to put our foot on the ground. We have to crack our heads. We have to put our work together. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you very much, Sheikh Gu. Firstly, I always find you as one of my heroes of inspiration in social rights issues, and we will follow up on that, inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sheikh Gu. And now I would like to, my honor to pass the floor to Professor Madhya, Dr. Rafidah Hanim from WAFIC, President of WAFIC, on why we should, Uyghur women and children who are in Malaysia deserves protection, because Malaysia is a compassionate society. Professor, you have the floor.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. I hope my line is clear. I've been asking my children to stop using the Wi-Fi to allow me some space. First of all, thank you for having me in this very esteemed forum. I'm so glad to be here together with my brothers and sisters from the Uyghur community. First of all, I think as a woman and as a mother, it was a shock, and I was appalled to hear about the many atrocities that has been befallen the Uyghur women. I first heard about how Chinese men were assigned to monitor the homes of Uyghur women whose husband was sent to prison camps, frequently slept in the same beds as them with a pair up and become family program. It was very demeaning, humiliating, and things which I, as a woman, could never imagine would happen and would want to happen to any women. And I also was terribly sad because of the, at least I think more than 1 million Uyghur was sent to prison-like camps, and also the fact that more than 500,000 Uyghur children in Xinjiang has been spirited to the children as young as 8 years old were being put in a state-run boarding schools by Chinese authorities. And then as a doctor, medical doctor, it also shocked me that women are subjected to forced contraceptions in the form of a intrauterine device and what appear to be pregnancy prevention shots and also forced abortions. Use of IUD and it has causes the women to actually stop getting their periods, and these things are forced against their wishes. It is the right for any women, for any families to want to have children, and the China government has no right to actually force this contraception and harming the health of the women. And of course, because of these problems, we had actually hosted a webinar event where we have 4 brave Uyghur women who shared their stories with us last year. And it was what you call to just show how bad the situation is. Even while we were handling this webinar, a few days before the webinar, one of the father's speaker, the father of Fatima Abdul Ghafur, passed away in a concentration camp. So we felt firsthand, how the sadness, the horror and the brutalities inflicting the women of Uyghur. And because of this, we would continue to actually fight and create awareness among Malaysian women, especially. As Malaysian women, there are plenty of them who hold significant positions. The ministers, women's ministries are one of the important ministry in Malaysia. I think we would, have our fair share in this movement to create awareness among the women of Malaysia. And I also support the call to ensure that Uyghurs in Malaysia to have prompt access to a fair and effective asylum process and legal counsel. And also, of course, the utmost important for our NGOs is about children's education. And hence, I think this is an ongoing struggle to have our registered refugees and asylum seekers, their children, which form a quarter of the whole asylum seekers and refugees, to get proper education, and for the government to actually tackle the problem of children not getting proper education. And it is only with education, providing education and affordable healthcare, that we would ensure the women of Uyghur and their children to continue to create awareness and to rebuild the lives. And I think we with this representing the women in this group, the women NGOs in Malaysia, we will continue to work hand in hand with our Uyghurs brothers and sisters to have the women of Malaysia to be more vocal and pressuring. Women are good. When in pressure movement, in pressuring movement, I think you can actually have women to have our emotional appeal to the government and to the society at large. So inshallah, I thank again Brother Zuhri Yohi for giving us the opportunity tonight, and we hope that we would be able to contribute significantly to this movement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor, for joining. I mean, it goes to show that it's not only men, it's women and children and their education, their livelihood, their safety is at stake here. Thank you, Professor. I'd like to pass the floor next to Engineer Haji Jamaluddin Shamsuddin, CEO of ACSIN, Allied Coordinating Committee of Islamic NGOs, which is a coalition of 20 Islamic NGOs in Malaysia, from an estimate representing about 500,000 members in total.
Thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, Brother Zuhri. My beloved brothers and sisters, Uyghur brothers and sisters, and our fellow rakan seperjuangan in Malaysia, when we say thank you for the opportunity. I will be very brief because I think we've heard some very good insight to the issues on this discussion on the commemoration of the July 2009 massacre, and also to discuss, I think Zuhri mentioned, to discuss about right of refuge for the Uyghur in Malaysia. And as I understand, the number of Uyghurs in KL in Malaysia is actually very limited. The number, if I'm correct, Zuhri, you mentioned it was about 80 to 100, not more than that. 80 to 100 of them in Malaysia?
Before the MCO, we are aware of 60. Now, currently, we're only aware of 30 plus. So we have met, ACSIN, for example, with our partners. We have done 2 roundtable discussions, trying to understand the issues in 2019, early and in the middle. And we were some of the fortunate ones to be invited by the Chinese government to go to Xinjiang and have a good tour there. Zuhri was with me, and there was about 20 of us. And somehow we saw through the whole charade. And the right of refuge for the Uyghurs in Malaysia, as mentioned by Brother Faisal, is already in some of the laws and the conventions that we have signed. Article 14 of the 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights simply says everyone has a right to seek and to enjoy in other countries asylum from prosecution. The only issue now is the narrative between us, the Uyghur, and the Chinese government. Yeah? And if you look at the propaganda, the aggressive propaganda of the Chinese government, it is, I would say, impressive. And there is, as far as we're concerned, almost a total blackout. There is some information that goes up, but it's very little is known. And if you compare that with the Palestinian issue, at least some of the videos, the stories that come out live, and we are able to feel the pain of the people of Gaza and Palestine. In China, that is not happening. That's not happening, not enough. So something has to be done. I think we will not go into, we are convinced that there is elements of cultural genocide at least.
You have children being taken away to be re-educated in a different culture. I think the process of Sinicization is very obvious. We're not discussing that. What is interesting is what we can do. Actually, I would say what we can do is continue to emphasize that we need independent observers to go there. If there's nothing to hide in China, we need to get independent observers from United Nations or OIC, to be able to go and evaluate the situation on the ground. That would be one. Number two, I think Sister Rahima mentioned about, and we were looking at the Uyghur Tribunal in London. One interesting fact is about 5 years ago, we had a Rohingya tribunal in KL. So this could be a project for the next 1-2 years. After we say bye-bye to the virus, maybe we can look at the possibility, or even before that, this is one big project that we can look at over the next 2 years and 1-2 years. We had experience in 2019 when we met the Foreign Minister of Malaysia before he jumped over to the other side of the camp or fence. He told directly to us, when I brought up this issue, I said, we need to look at the issues with regards to the Uyghur, and his answer was, please, the civil society organizations, you can go full steam ahead, do what you want, don't break the law, and we will be quiet. And actually we are some of them said that we are supporting, but he said, we actually supportive, but we cannot show it. China is our biggest trading partner, and they can make or break our economy to a certain extent. So that is, I think, still the position of the government, and I think we need to continue to extract these statements from them. And this comes from what we were discussing in our training a few weeks back, that you need to do political lobbying. And political lobbying needs a lot of resources. And how do we structure it is a challenge that we need to do. The structure of people, expertise, finance, to get this political lobby in place. And then we need, as I mentioned, suggested in that discussion or training, that we need to get some Uyghur brothers here in KL on board. You have to take the risk, and to be on board in our structure, we have to do what the Chinese do. I mean, I think Brother Jason Leong has been telling me, China, when it was not, he didn't know about petroleum and oil gas industry. It was very clever. He said, simple. Our rule is copy and follow Petronas. Simple, until after 5 years, 10 years, you are confident, then you take off on your own. We can use the same approach. We copy the structure of our Palestine campaigns here in Malaysia. For example, the Al-Quds Foundation. The chairman is the son of Tun Mahathir. So if we can copy some kind of a structure, I think that's a challenge that we can look at to be more effective, looking ahead. So that is number two. And then finally, I would look at the process. I mean, just to close the discussion, my presentation, we need to, what we can see is quite clear, the process of Sinicization. It has happened in Tibet, 5 years of Chen Chong-ko, with the tacit approval of President Xi Jinping. And then he was promoted to Xinjiang. And I had the honor of discussing with a few Inner Mongolian citizens in Korea in one of the peace conference, and their comments were still the same. They are totally being Sinicized to become a Chinese speaking, thinking, educated in Mandarin, and also total loyalty to the Communist Party. I think that philosophy is across board. So we call the Chinese government to stop also, I think, this inhumane approach of using families as an object of retribution. I think this is, in the 21st century, it doesn't really make sense. And allow for their free communication is so inhumane. I think we got so many examples. Suri mentioned about some of our brothers. We don't want to mention the names and all that. The 3-year-old daughter and the wife, it was born here. She went back to visit the grandma and grandpa. And after that, he didn't know where they were, out of communication. For the past, now it's already 4 or 5 years. I mean, it's totally inhumane. It's a crime against humanity. So I will urge, inshallah, we urge that the Chinese government embrace multiculturalism. Yeah, Tegu Azmi mentioned about the multiculturalism and multi-religiosity in Malaysia. It is an example for the rest of the world. Yeah, we have been very peaceful for 60, 70 years and very happening. I think and life was good. We grew very well, and things are broadly positive. And there's a lot of advantage of multiculturalism. They need to look at the beauty of diverse culture living together peacefully in harmony, and to paint diverse people and diverse religious beliefs in a single brush is not wise. Yeah? And closing, the teaching of Confucius encourages consultation and taking the middle ground. Yeah? And coming to compromise, to settle things, not to create tension and crisis. So with that, thank you, Brother Zuri.
Thank you, Haji Jamal. For clarification, in April of 2019, we were taken on a trip to Beijing, Urumqi, and Kashgar. Haji Jamal and myself, we managed to tour Urumqi and Kashgar, and we find it very disturbing of what's happening there. For example, just a quick example, whereby I mean, when I give salam to a man in many different tones of voice and many different accents, he would look very worried and try to look who's listening. You know, he wouldn't reply to salam. And then we weren't able to pray at the Idkah Mosque. I wanted to give a donation to the mosque, and I asked the tour guide, "Where's the donation box?" He said, "I don't know. Why do you want to give donation to the mosque?" Like, because it's custom. It's like, and then he asked his superior and superior. At the end, the deputy mayor answered to me and said, "No, thank you, no, thank you." I mean, they're very scared if we were to give a small donation to the local mosque. I mean, I think I can elaborate on that story on another video. We have another esteemed supporter, Brother Jason Leong. I'd like to introduce Brother Jason Leong from ANCOM, Association of Next Generation of Christians of Malaysia. I think he'll be the best person to present his point of view, and he's also a representative of 400 churches in Malaysia. Brother Jason, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Brother Zuri, and also thank you very much, everybody, for coming and attending this particular meeting and this session. Indeed, it is my privilege and an honor to be a part of this movement called Malaysia for Uighur. And this is a movement that comes very close even among the hearts of those who believe in the Christian faith. Because the very crux of the Christian faith is that of compassion and love for our neighbors. And a neighbor includes the people of Xinjiang, the Uighurs, ethnic group people. And it is very clear that this is not just an issue that affects Muslims, but it affects Christians in Xinjiang as well. there is a small population of about 2% of the Uyghur people who are Christians. Even though it is a very small minority, there are a number of churches that are in Xinjiang itself and all across China. And as you can see in this particular slide, it's just a sample of what the Chinese CCP government is doing to basically this is a removal of the cultural and religious identity of the churches. As you can see, the crosses of all the churches has been systematically removed, and some churches are demolished. And when some crosses cannot be removed, they will also burn it and destroy it. And over the years, hundreds of thousands of Christians has been detained in China, and in Xinjiang itself, there are pastors and who has been arbitrarily detained and sent to prison. And the next slide, there is one particular church, I think, in Xinjiang itself. This particular church has been. This is the Catholic Church of the Sacred Heart in Xinjiang. All the crosses has been removed, as you can see, and the building is now slated for demolition. And it cannot be used because water, electricity, and all the necessary services has been cut off by the government. So it is there just waiting to be demolished and destroyed, along with all the thousands of mosques and masjid and surau of the Muslim brothers. So this is actually human rights abuse, targeted human rights abuse, and which is actually a flagrant and blatant violation of the International Declaration on Freedom of Religion by the UN, as per the 1981 declaration at the United Nations General Assembly. And it is also a violation of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, ICCPR, of which China has already signed as a signatory, but even though they have not ratified it, but they are already bound by the provisions of this particular covenant. And as you can see, not only these two major violations of the international convention and agreements, they are also in violation of the UN Convention Against Torture and also the UN Refugee Convention. So the flagrant violations and blatant violations are many. And the persecutions of Christians and Muslims in Xinjiang are real. It is evil, it is cruel, it is wicked, and it is often too horrendous to ignore. This kind of Sinization must stop, and the arrest and detention of Christians and Muslims must also stop. Especially in this 21st century, I don't think we can accept the mass internment of individuals based on their religious faith and on the basis of the cultural identity. So therefore, we are here as Malaysians to join and stand in solidarity with all the other Uyghur movements in the world today and say that we too want to shine a light on the dark and outrageous situation affecting so many Uyghurs in Xinjiang itself. And we want to lend our voice to the global voice of saving the Uyghurs so that justice will be done. And to end today, my particular comments here is this rhetorical question. Should we even congratulate this Communist Party of China on its 100th birthday, when this particular Communist Party is responsible for causing the death of its own people, 50 million of them? And if they are responsible for even causing the death of their own people, what else are they capable of. So today is the day we make our stand, and here, indeed, we must make sure that they will never do this to the Uyghur people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brother Jason. I mean, it is important for us to continue to highlight, and as Brother Jason has shared, also is that Malaysia for Uyghur, the movement, we are not against China. We are pro-Uyghur human rights. We're pro-human rights, and we're not anti-China. Okay, I mean, to be absolutely personal, I mean, I have Chinese blood myself. I mean, my grandmother was Chinese, my late grandmother. So, okay, to continue. All right, thank you, Brother Jason. All right, next I would pass the floor to Brother Nur Muhammad Majid from East Turkestan Australian Association, the president. Brother Nur Muhammad Majid.
You can stop share.
Okay. Brother Nur Muhammad Majid.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My dear respected elders, the passionate NGO leaders of the Malaysian brothers and sisters, and also my advocacy colleagues around the world, good evening to you all. And thank you for Brother Zuhri for organizing this significant event, making a proposal for the Malaysian government to consider the possibility of legislating on Uyghur refugee rights in Malaysia. I am an Uyghur who lived in Malaysia, and I studied in Malaysia for some time, and I had some bit of experience in Malaysia. Malaysia has been providing a tourist destination, a business opportunity, an education destiny, and the other living or working places for the many of the Uighurs since 2000. We have about more than 20 years of connection or ties in Malaysia by making Malaysia is one of the best destinations for the Uyghur Muslims to live, study, to take leisure, or sometimes is en route to safe haven countries like Turkey, Europe, or America, Canada. While I'm staying in Malaysia in 2008 and early 2009, so there were Uyghurs who were studying master degrees, bachelor degrees, language studies, so either doing some small businesses or making some investment in Malaysia. Then there was an event, a massacre in Urumqi in 2009, which reshaped the Chinese attitudes on the Uyghur people, showing that Chinese country, Chinese system, Chinese economy, and Chinese citizens in East Turkestan are completely opposing the Uyghur existence. Then this has automatically impacted the notions of other countries, especially the countries who has a good relationship with China. From 2009 until 2013, many of the Uyghurs fled from East Turkestan en route from inland China, Vietnam, Thailand, arrived in Malaysia, but none of them were offered any protection in Malaysia. This is a reality. Hence, all of them had to flee to other countries by risking their lives. We know that Malaysian authorities are allowing Uyghurs to transit Malaysian territory or Malaysian land for the Uyghurs to flee to other countries. But at the same time, we do not forget that in December 2013, Malaysian authorities deported 6 Uyghurs from Malaysian territory to China's authorities, including one husband of a Malaysian citizen, which is holder of the Malaysian permanent visa. He was an Uyghur man. After his unfortunate deportation, he was subject to the 3 years plus 3 more years of detention by the Chinese authorities, and still he is serving prison terms in China. he is not able to come out anymore forever. Again, since 2009 to 2018, this is the period where Najib Razak was ruling as a prime minister in Malaysia. With the introductions of the national security law in Malaysia, the Uyghurs are facing numerous of discriminations, prejudice, and other means of attack by the Malaysian police force, security agencies, border forces, and the other government agencies. On their entry to Malaysia, exit from Malaysia, they're facing different types of discriminations without any types of mercy or offering help. I personally experienced this one even though I was an Australian citizen. And I believe that when accessing the United Nations High Commission for Refugees assistance in Malaysia, even though Malaysia was hosting 179,000 refugees from Rohingya, Burma, Palestine, or other Asian countries like Iraq, Yemen, but none of the Uyghurs were able to access to the UN center freely. With the assistance of the ABIM and other NGOs, yes, some small number of Uyghurs were able to access the UN services and were able to resettle in safe third countries. However, since 2014, the United Nations High Commission for Refugee Office rejected to receive the Uyghurs in Malaysia, or specifically in Kuala Lumpur. We have seen that until today, there are numerous of Uyghurs who approached the UNHCR office, but none of them were able to register with UNHCR. None of them were able to be protected by the UN agency in Malaysia, but always are at risk of harm by the Chinese authorities. Hence, all of them trying to escape from Malaysia to safe third countries. En route of escaping from Malaysia to other countries, they risk their lives. Their families are torn apart. I believe that in Malaysia, there was a man who started PhD degree at the IIUM, International Islamic University of Malaysia. His wife returned to China in 2016. And then the husband traveled to Australia. After reaching to Australia, the husband offered a protection in this country, now become resident. However, because of her presence in Malaysia for the past 7 or 8 years' time, his wife was sentenced to 9 years of imprisonment, simply because of residing in Malaysia in a Muslim country, because she was wearing hijab. She was a partner of a person who studied at the Islamic University in Malaysia. This is not only a single case that I am naming off. Malaysia, yes, they offered many help to the Uyghurs, specifically after March 2018, when the Dr. Mahathir came into power. He personally offered help, passionate help to the Uyghur refugees. 8 of the former detainees were released to Turkey. That was historical remarks of Malaysian government to compensate for the mistake that they have done in 2013. In 2020, yes, Malaysian Foreign Ministry issued a major statement to state that Malaysia is not going to extradite any of the Uyghurs, despite the claim by the Chinese authorities. But has there any particular action has been taken by the Malaysian government to safeguard the currently residing 60 or more Uyghur citizens living in Malaysia? Some of them have lived in Malaysia for more than 10 years. Some of them have worked at the Malaysian higher academic institutions. But unfortunately, because some of them passports are expired, then the Malaysian Immigration Department are refusing to renew of their visas in Malaysia. With the lack of the current passport documentations, they were forced to leave Malaysia. The family is now torn apart. I believe that there is a man who is working in a Malaysian university. He is now in Malaysia, but his wife and children are in different countries. Is unable to get a secure settlement in any of the countries. We have known some of the Uyghur businesses like Kiram Atush, who invested millions of dollars in Malaysia by purchasing high-profile accommodations, restaurants, or other businesses, were at risk of the Chinese harassment. Hence, he had to quit those businesses to leave to another countries. This is the reality that we are recalling our Malaysian government, Malaysian NGOs and the Malaysian public to offer a systemic help for the Uyghurs to re-establish, revitalize their life system in Malaysia. Doesn't matter whether they are working, they are migrating, they are marrying to Malaysian citizens, or they are pursuing any education institution in Malaysia, they must be assured, firstly, the safety of possible deportation to Chinese dictator regime where they are facing unfortunate fate, which is a death if they were returned back to China. The secondly, Malaysian law is based on the common law. Malaysian law is completely different from the other Arab countries' law. Malaysia has the law based on the written and the unwritten system. Written constitution is also based on the common law and the Sharia law as well. The Sharia law is prohibited to deport any of the Muslims from the Muslim land to the non-Muslims. Of the common law, where the common law is prohibits any of the high-risk individuals to be returned to the countries where their lives are at risk. We have shown with the evidence of the global reactions to the Chinese mistreatments on the Uyghurs. 7 countries accepted the genocide notion. Many of the academians, institutions proven credible reports, including Malaysian NGOs as well. Whereas there is no sign of a clear formations of a systemic support mechanism in Malaysia to safeguard the rights of the Uyghur citizens who are contributing to the Malaysian economy, contributing to the Malaysian multi-ethnic society, and making Malaysia as a place livable, lovable, and adorable. I would like to end one sentence. As Dr. Jamaluddin stated, the Uyghurs need to take part in the process of campaigning to persuade the Malaysian politicians, Malaysian NGOs, Malaysian public to be persuaded in this process. But how can that be done?
Sorry, brother, the line is really not clear. If you could... Sorry, the brother is really... The line is really not clear. I think we lost brother.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
So hopefully, brother, we can do a separate video with brother Nur Muhammad Majid, Turkistan.
Okay, I think the video is okay, Zuri.
Oh, okay. Boleh. If you can
continue.
Yeah,
you can continue.
Brother, could you wrap it up, please?
Enter again.
Or perhaps we can move along.
That's okay. Connected?
Brother, very sorry. I really read the quality of the line. If you could wrap up, if you will.
Okay. Is it a little bit clear now?
My apologies.
You need to adjust your position there.
That's okay, but you rotate, yeah. Okay.
Please continue, brother Muhammad.
Thank you. One more time, as we stated that if we want to include Uyghurs living in Malaysia on board of this campaign, yes, we are able to accommodate that one. But we also have a condition to say how we are assuring the safety of those Uyghurs who are at high risk of the Chinese harm or Chinese attacking. So we need to make sure that firstly from the government side, from the official side, we need to give them the rights to stay in Malaysia permanently, or give them the special rights, even under the special case law, allowing them to stay indefinitely in Malaysia without having any of the risk of to be deported back to China. Then all of the Uyghurs living in Malaysia are able to join your fight to protect the rights of the Uyghurs. And then I believe that in my presence in Malaysia and in my last many of the trips to Malaysia, I received a multiple support and the multiple aid from the Malaysian NGOs and the friends, and the majority of you are here that you know me, that we still have intention to resume our connection to the Malaysian NGOs, to continue our systemic mechanism works to establish a good mechanism for the Uyghurs to be able to live, travel, study, or to make Malaysia home in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. Thank you very much, brother. I regret for the clarity of the line, and we hope to have more collaborations and have more insights from you in the future, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Now I'd like to pass the floor to Brother Muhammad Tukhti from Canada, Executive Director of Uyghur Rights Advocacy Project from Canada. Brother Muhammad Tukhti, pleasure to have you back.
Yeah, thank you, Brother Zuhri, and thank you for all participants and the panelists. And good morning from Ottawa to everyone, of course. It is good evening for you. And today is a memorable day and a sad day for the recent history of Uyghurs, and we are commemorating the 12th anniversary of July 5th Urumqi Massacre. And the protest rallies are taking place on major cities and western capitals, including here in Canada. So by taking this occasion, I pray for those victims who lost their lives during the July 5th bloody crackdown by the Chinese authorities, and may Allah grant them and the highest level of paradise, because they sacrificed their life for the just cause of others. And now it is a good time to talk about the Uyghur refugees, and there are a number of reports, credible reports released by a number of other organizations, and we will share that documentations with Brother Zuhri, and you can distribute with other participants as well. Just, I would like to be very brief. And in our recent history, since 1949, there are 3 waves of Uyghur exodus from our homeland. One is in 1949, when the communist Chinese government invaded the East Turkestan. The thousands of Uyghurs, they fled to the neighboring countries at that time, Kashmir, and from there they eventually settled down in Saudi Arabia and Turkey. That is the first wave of Uyghur exodus. And the second wave of Uyghur exodus was in 1950s. According to reports, credible reports, more than 200,000 Uyghurs fled to Soviet Union or neighboring republics of Soviet Union, and settled down in Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and still generations from those, the second wave of Uyghur exodus are living in those now independent countries. And the third wave of Uyghur exodus has taken place just after July 5th Urumqi Massacre. And more than, under the conservative estimates, 20,000 Uyghurs, they walked down all the way from forests and mountains to Southeast East Asian countries, just like Thailand and Vietnam, Cambodia. And sadly, couple hundred of Uyghur refugees, they deported back to China by Thailand and Cambodia. And some of them, after that difficult journey, some of them settled in Turkey. And now we are talking about, and it's nearly 48 Uyghur refugees still in Thailand jail, just because they illegally crossed the border. And during that time, there are some Uyghurs landed in Malaysia as well. And I would like to briefly talk about those 48 Uyghur refugees who are in detention of Thailand. And they tried to escape a number of times from Thailand jail and successfully crossed the border to Malaysia, and the Malaysian government, I think, sent them back to Thailand again. So it is a sad story. And so as not only the country with majority Muslims, as decent human beings, we have a responsibility to protect those vulnerable people, because if China successfully deported them back to China, and their life will be ended there. Not only in concentration camps, they can be a victim of organ harvesting and all kinds of tortures and the death penalties. So in that regard, it is important. And the second thing I would like to mention is, unfortunately, Malaysia is not a party for Geneva Convention on Refugees, 1951 Geneva Convention. And the UNHCR is operating in Malaysia, and the UNHCR is giving recommendations to Malaysian government to improve the situation of refugee settlement and acceptance, and most importantly, the recognition of the rights of refugees. And the current law in Malaysia makes no distinction between refugees or protected person or illegal documented immigrants. So these are the areas really we have to work on, because we have a very nice Islamic tradition, and we have a number of verses in Quran for the protection of the rights of vulnerable people. And so if we have a decent amount of Islamic knowledge, we know the Hijrat history of Prophet Muhammad from Mecca to Medina. The Ansars in Medina hosted our Prophet, and all Muslims took refuge in Medina. They escaped from the oppression of mushriks. And this is the nice tradition, and why we forgot that tradition, and we have to ask that question as well. And the last recommendations I have, I'm going to give it to you is, it is better just to work with the UNHCR in Malaysia, because UNHCR has a number of partner organizations in Malaysia. And the organizations here, if you contact with the UNHCR office in Malaysia, they will provide you the partner organizations, and you can increase the level of cooperation with them, and how you can use the opportunity or strength of UNHCR and put more pressure on Malaysia to change some laws, or introduction of some laws, or amend some laws. And so if you can stop here, these are the organizations. Actually, the first, this one. You see, this is the NGOs that partner with the UNHCR office in Malaysia, and Harvest Center and Hartford, some of them operational partners. And I can send you the names of these organizations for your reference. Maybe you can contact with them, and you can create some kind of solidarity with them, and join forces together with the UNHCR to make some meaningful impact on the decision-making process of Malaysia, to make Malaysia more friendly place for the refugees, not in personal level, but at the same time the governmental policy level. Because unless we introduce a certain level of policies For example, I'm a little bit troubled why Malaysia is not part of the 1951 Geneva Convention, because that is the international documents and the covenants. The Muslim countries should be the first one to adopt this one, because we are the one. It is part of our belief to help the needy people, help those who are hungry, help those who are orphaned. This is a part of our belief. And why we are not part of this the Geneva Convention? We have to ask this question, because that convention, it is not only a written document, at the same time it is binding document and help us to fulfill our legal obligation in a civilized world, at the same time our religious obligation to extend our helps for those vulnerable who are in need of help. So this is the international system established and well-founded, and they have resources to help those people in Africa or other parts of the world. So we should encourage the Malaysia to participate or accept the 1951 Geneva Convention. And there should be some political parties who are pro or who are supporting the 1951 Geneva Convention. So we should find a way to partner with them, and we should create some kind of public movement to put pressure on Malaysian government to address those issues. Unless we address this this important issue, because 1951 Geneva Convention gives us a definition, who is refugee, and then give us a legal obligation how to protect them. And if we do not accept the definition of refugees, or if we do not be part of this international definition, then we have different ideas. Our laws may not be enough to distinguish refugees and a protected person and illegal immigrants. In that case, we put all of them into one basket. And now we are complaining about, Brother Majid mentioned very good point, and that there are Uyghurs in Malaysia, and why they are not speaking up? Because there is no protection there. And so this is a very important issue. And this is the new beginning in cooperation with the nice people like you in Malaysia. And we are here to provide whatever we have in documentation level or advice or recommendations on solidarity, whatever we can, just to increase certain level of awareness in Malaysia, and so that we can address this very important issue that bleeds our heart, and so many millions of Muslims' heart as well. And so once again, I would like to thank Brother Zuhri and all my brothers and sisters taking part of this important event. Thank you for your time, and this is ibadah for you, and may Allah accept your ibadah. Thank you.
Amin. Thank you very much, brother. I mean, there's so much that needs to be done. Inshallah, this is a step forward, and we will appreciate your advice for our work in the future, inshallah. Okay, I would like to pass the floor to Brother Fahmi Shamsuddin, CEO of Global Peace Mission Malaysia, and among one of several NGOs in Malaysia who have been providing aid to Uyghurs in Malaysia, and especially for GPM, Global Peace Mission Malaysia, have provided aid internationally as well. So I think he's the better person to elaborate on his own work, inshallah. Please.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you to Brother Zuhri and the rest of the panelists. I believe tonight's session here in Malaysia particularly, we are not alone. I believe this such gathering tonight is basically being organized by others, brothers and sisters who are in many other states, many other cities in this world, because we believe that we need to have this responsibility to assist, to help, and to give more awareness to the Uyghur community, not only within your diaspora, but at the same time to acknowledge, to to be given some enlightenment to our public, especially here in Malaysia. Basically, I provided some, our slide presentation for my presentation, because I personally asked Zuhri to put me at the last presenter as for tonight, because I believe that everyone here, all the panelists here, is all rounded. Every one of you touch different topic, different angle, and this is basically as a recap, as a what we are now trying our level best to do on behalf of Malaysian civil society. We believe and we understand the situation here in Malaysia, especially our total trade volume between Malaysia as well as China. I think this one has been mentioned earlier by Haji Jamal, but just to put it in the record, the amount is around 443 billion as for 2018, and the numbers of Chinese visitors coming into Malaysia is around 3 million. So due to the pandemic COVID-19, I believe the amount is maybe dropped, but they're expecting into 2020, the jointly set a target reaching bilateral trade between both countries is almost 160 billion in 2020. So we understand in terms of our size, in terms of many other issues that happening with regard directly with China, I believe that our stand and our voice up against China is relatively small compared to other bigger nations like US, like Turkey and whatnot. So that one is one of the things that we need to understand. But at the same time, I believe before the COVID-19 started, for the past 2 years, we managed to bring Uyghur leaders to Malaysia. I think that this is most important things, because your voice is more credible compared to us if we speak on behalf, like maybe Brother Zuhri speak, and then maybe people will believe it because he's wearing 100% dopa, and these are if we not mentioning that Zuhri is from Malaysia, maybe people might believe that Zuhri is from Uighur. So next is basically our action program. Next slide is basically the one that I mentioned to you earlier. Next will be the meeting that we coordinate with the former diplomat, former minister, Minister of Foreign Affairs, the OIC, Tan Sri Syed Hamid Alba also managed to give some ideas and extend his experience with regard to this issue, what we can do on behalf of Malaysian society, as well as to give more awareness and impact, not only here in Malaysia, but worldwide. Next, this is basically the program that I personally attend. This is organized by one of the think tank here in Malaysia, IAS, and this program is basically coincident with the trip visit organized by China embassy to Urumqi, to Xinjiang. So me personally, of course, even we from ABIM, from GPM, we were invited to go there, but we believe this is basically an orchestrated visit, and we decided not to accept any invitation from China, because we believe even we are not agree. Alhamdulillah, we managed to have Brother Jamal and Brother Zuhri, who personally do not 100% believe to whatever orchestrated by the Chinese government, but the rest of the delegate, we are not sure. I have this experience when one of the delegates joining this visit, in fact, coming up with statement suggesting to the Malaysian government to initiate the same model of concentration camp to those who consider as minority, who don't have any patriotism against the country. So you see how they managed to capture your mind and thinking with regard to this issue. But I believe this is not new. We try not only manage to have engagement on the advocacy side, but as well as a humanitarian side. We went to many other media platforms next, nationally, Malay, newspaper version, English version. This is basically Dr. Burhan, Dr. Imam Abdul Salam from Australia. So in fact, we come up with this full page of statement to explain about what the condition, especially happening now for the Uyghur. But later on, after a weeks of this presentation, I mean the media coverage on our issue, the Chinese government, of course, through their embassy, come up with their own narrative in Bahasa Melayu, saying different, come up with a different narrative. So we believe that they are planning, I mean, they are, of course, because of the money, because of powers, they managed to, what we call, to counter whatever point given by us, even we build the Uyghur spokesperson with regard to this matter. Next, this is basically in NT7 Asro Awani. So next, this is basically to show you what we did for the past 2 years. We managed to have more roundtable discussion. Perhaps this occasion is basically important for us to get together all the civil society movement to speak on, and we try to come up with the memorandum. And this memorandum, perhaps we will, on behalf of Malaysia for Uyghur, we planning to seek encouragement to present this, what we call, initiative, our voices to related authority, any minister or any MPs with regard to this matter. Next will be another the important things that mentioned by earlier by Cikgu Azmi, and we managed to come up with khutbah, special khutbah, and this has been done in Perak. So we hopefully in many other states, because now in Jumaat we, due to COVID-19, we do not have much time to be allowed to enter mosque due to COVID. But hopefully later, after the pandemic COVID-19 finish, so there will be more awareness to public, especially during khutbah Jumaat. So if you can imagine, let's say if we can get more than million of Muslim here in Malaysia went for Jumaat prayer, inshallah, by having this khutbah, at least they can have more, I mean, awareness on this campaign. Next. So we come up with a Peduli Uyghur campaign. That's why if you see at the back of our backdrop here is despite Save Uyghur, we have another words, Peduli Uyghur. So we hopefully that our brothers and sisters Uyghur, please also note that Peduli Uyghur is words that we are using specifically to have more awareness coming from Malaysia, inshallah. Next. And this is basically my experience. A couple of times went to Istanbul because we understand that many Uyghur diaspora now living in Istanbul. I think more than 40,000, 60,000. They have escaped to Turkey for safety and having fled horrific human rights abuses. The Uyghur refugees, we believe that they are living in unstable condition. The one most important things that we need to understand also is other issue on psychology, depression, anxiety, especially the Uyghur who are living outside of their own country. So the psychological torture for us is we need to address this, because Uyghur abroad face mental health crisis over the plight of relatives who remain unknown status in Xinjiang or in concentration camp. So maybe there must be a step to be taken to address this secondary trauma of those who have fled. And we understand that despite their struggles, some people do not be ready to speak or don't speak out and to seek mental health counseling because of the stigma and also the society norm. So I think we have managed to have many demonstrations next. To show you, this is basically in Istanbul. We have iftar, we inshallah in Korban this year, and in order to preserve their language, we managed also to get fund to have a book published in their own language for the educational children education. Next will be our protest in front of the embassy. Last time when the pandemic COVID-19, I think I personally managed together with Brother Faisal to be allowed to enter China embassy premises, just to hand over memorandum of sympathy to the China government on the pandemic COVID. But rather other issue, especially for Uyghur, of course, they do not accept our so-called our presence in front of the embassy. But we managed to gather many times together with the rest of civil society. Next, this is basically the situation Even we don't have much crowd, but at least we show our support. Next. Yeah, Cikgu Azmi also is here, Brother Raimi, Brother Faisal, Dr. Roslan. Next. So this is basically the fund that we created, Peduli Uyghur. So lastly will be, okay, yeah, that's all from me. Inshallah, hopefully we try our level best on behalf of Malaysian. Now we understand that people are more concentration on Palestinian issue, but we need to understand that the Uyghur community, we are not left you. We pray, our talk in prayer with you, inshallah. Hopefully we this is basically our responsibility towards ummah, inshallah. Thank you so much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Amir, Brother Zuri.
Jazakallah khair, brother. Thank you very much for your sharing. I mean, it shows that Malaysians can do something about it. And you're already doing something about it. And we can follow suit, inshallah. And now, as promised, I would like to read a statement from an Uyghur lady in Malaysia, because I invited her, and out of fear of safety, she doesn't want to appear, and even her voice, she doesn't want her voice to come out, because it can be detected and traced, and they trace her identity and trace, and the backlash will be felt by her family back home in Xinjiang. So I will read her statement that she sent to me to read. Bismillah. Dear respectful Malaysian government, I am an Uyghur woman from East Turkestan, Xinjiang, China. I came to Malaysia 4.5 years ago for work. Before coming to Malaysia, I had the opportunity to go to the USA, but in the end, I decided to come to stay in Malaysia because it's a Muslim majority country, and I hoped I could live in a Muslim environment as a Muslim. Since I was born and until I come to Malaysia, it was so hard for me to feel like I was living in an Islamic environment. Before this, she couldn't even practice her prayers freely, couldn't go to the mosque, hardly listen to the azan, couldn't learn the Quran or other Islamic knowledge. I came to Malaysia mainly seeking all these basic things as a Muslim. After coming here, I like this country and I like the people here. I like how my life is going. Most of the time, I'm treated as others, as Malaysian, which makes me feel as I am in my own country. And it gives me another comfort. While I am unable to contact my family and all my relatives and friends back in my hometown for 4 years now. But now I'm having difficulties to stay in Malaysia as I am unable to renew my passport and can't get any other legal documents for staying in Malaysia. I am just stuck and just don't know what to do. To be frank, I still don't want to leave this country to go to another country, especially when Islamophobia is on the increase in many other countries now. My passport is nearly expired. It's impossible for me to renew my passport as Uyghur. If I go to the Chinese embassy to renew my passport, they will only give Uyghurs one-way passport and force us to go back to China. Although I miss my hometown and miss everyone here, I can't go back. It's only a way to death and being tortured. So I hope the Malaysian government can consider the Uyghur people situation here in Malaysia and give us legal document to stay in Malaysia and protect us as human and as Muslim brothers and sisters. Thank you so much for your consideration. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that is the plight of an Uyghur woman here in Malaysia. And I think we're drawing to a close, and I hope you can, the listeners out there can learn to empathize and understand the situation that others are going through. All right, so let me put up my screen. Just give me 5 more. I just need 5 more minutes, please, before I know it's already 10. Okay, memorandum of action to recognize Uyghur refugee rights by the Malaysian government with or without United Nations High Commission for Refugees. The endorsement is still open for NGOs to sign. Inshallah, we plan to give it to Datuk Sri Muhammad Rizwan Mat Yusof, Minister at the Prime Minister's Department of Malaysia for special functions. And we greatly admire the bold step that the Minister has made in October last year, where Datuk Sri has mentioned that we will not expatriate Uyghurs back to China, even at their behest. And I've been asked to clarify something that happened today, rather dramatic, which is due to some misunderstanding and miscommunication, that our poster that we put up, where we our discussion, our memorandum of action to be discussed among NGOs, which we want to give to present to Datuk Sri Muhammad Rizwan Yusof, it has been misunderstood as Datuk Sri has endorsed, acknowledged, and accepted the invitation. In fact, that is not true. We have sent an invitation, which Datuk Sri has not accept, and the invitation specifically mentions that invite him as a member of non-partisan member of parliament and as an observer only, because we would like to present this to him and include him in the know. So to clarify, this came up as a disclaimer by the Pejabat Menteri Jabatan Perdana Menteri that this has not been endorsed. Of course, it has not been endorsed. As I mentioned, we have in no way has indicated that the minister has endorsed or accepted this invitation. I'm not sure why we have been labeled as palsu, fake. It is simply a misunderstanding. I would like to make that very clear, where we are a group of NGOs coming together to discuss and to endorse this memorandum of action, which we will present to Datuk Sri. Somehow, this has become a sensitive matter. And so, yeah, that is the clarification I was asked to make. Okay, I think we'll take a quick look at the questions. Thank you for staying. All right. There was a question just now, how many Uyghurs are in Malaysia? And we are aware of more than 60 because we've had like this was in 2019 Kurban. We had a big gathering, and we were serving a lot of food, and there were many Uyghur brothers and sisters, and we know that there are more than 60. And now during COVID and our current situation, we are only aware of 30. We're still trying to track where they are, where they are now, or where they have left, and it seems like they've just disappeared. Hopefully they are safe. Is there any questions from the media? Just a moment. Okay, if there are no questions from the media, perhaps any final statement from any of our panelists? We have another Uyghur witness here.
This Brother Zori.
Yes, Tegu.
Can I just chip in just a few words? I think the one that we have made a clarification is important. I saw the wordings that it's memorandum for the minister. It's not, like he is already endorsed. So I think your clarification is good enough. So I think we shouldn't be worried about that. If anything rises from that, then we will be together with you to confirm that this is our memorandum. The second part is that I think, of course, there are things that we ourselves do not agree with what the government has done in some ways. It's on cases, specific cases that have been said by one or two of our brothers that these are the mistakes of Malaysian handling. But those cases are things that we can look at so that it will not be repeated. We have expressed, a lot of organizations, even my organization, we expressed our dismay about how that was handled on that few cases. I wrote a letter to the minister, the prime minister. So let us make that as some points that we will always be together with, and to make sure that this does not happen again. But overall, when we talk about that, we have to formulate something for the government. I think this is the challenge that we have. I think it's true. It will not be easy for us to call on our Uighurs to come forward and declare their position with us. It will take time. I think what Brother Jamal is doing is telling us that it has to be in a cascaded way, where at a time where we really put up our brothers in front to be with us in all the forums. But I think what we need to do is to really engage with our government, and making our government as a platform to also then talk to many of our Muslim nations. For instance, Indonesia, a very big nation, is strong in a way, but we've never seen that much consistency of voicing out. There's been some groups, small groups in Indonesia, but I think it's time that when we pushed from the Malaysian side, we have to also see our strong neighbors to be with us. So it's good that this memorandum is also then become a public documents that we can share with the other countries. My final word is that immediately after this, if we can have an audience, either it's online or whatever, with the Prime Minister himself, hoping that he will be fine within these few days. I mean, he's not well now, but at least we can convey to him that we need this very urgently, that there must be at least a committee to engage with the NGOs, or a minister to engage with the NGOs directly, and then we can always have this discussion with them, and then to put forward all these things, even to the extent of a motion in the parliament. So that should be our next move, but let us see what we can do with our memorandum within the next few days. Okay, Zuri, thank you.
Thank you very much, Shegu. Thank you. We will follow up on that, inshallah. Okay, with your permission and with my gratitudes, I would like to thank everyone for participating, and thank you so much. I feel blessed. I am excited for what has happened tonight. We have gathered here and shared and created awareness, inshallah. And also, I am at the same time, feel the sadness of the death of so many brothers and sisters in Urumqi 2009. And it is still going on. In fact, I've been told that it's getting worse, systematically worse. So, and somehow Malaysians, I mean, we've been living peacefully for so many years. It's hard for us to imagine such atrocities happening again since World War II. The mind it's just mind-boggling that this is happening now. Human organ harvesting, forced apostasy, systematic rape, genocide. The list goes on. It's just the mind can't imagine. But we will try to create awareness for it, step by step, day by day, and we will be relentless, inshallah. Thank you very much, everyone, for participating. Okay, so one last check if there is a question from the media. Okay, so far no questions. All right, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for joining. With this, I would like to thank everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Inshallah, we will give you some of the things that oppression Muslims are going in Turkestan in terms of their religious freedom.
There is no religious freedom at all. Their complete religious freedom has been banned. I'll give you some list of that. Number one, they cannot read Quran. The Quran, all the religious books have been destroyed. They cannot pray. They cannot attend the mosque. They cannot fast openly. They cannot help each other with sadaqah. They cannot give Qurban to each other. And they cannot enter a marriage with Muslims openly now. That's banned. They are forced to marry with the non-Muslim Chinese. And they are placed, the non-Muslim Chinese are placed in the Muslim families without males present, because all the males are taken into camp. And also they are forced to eat pork, drink alcohol. If you are running business, you are not allowed to use any symbol of halal logo. And there are so many more that we can talk anything Islamic you think of, that's banned there. Thank you.